Today we're going to be going over how to make a round dice tower. I wanted to kind of dive my head into how to make one of these things, and I hadn't seen a round one out there for a tutorial that wasn't done on a 3D printer. So I figured I'd show you guys how to do this quick, easy, and make a nice little tower. To make sure we get a consistently round product, we need something tall and round. I'm using a old flower vase that we don't really use anymore, and I'm going to kind of make my base out of that. So I'm not using any specific measurements here, just something that looked like it would feel right for a dice tower in terms of length, width, everything, and then I'm constantly measuring to make sure that I didn't go over the lines. But now I set up that kind of platform that it's all going to be at, but then I made it the width of the bricks that I'm going to use around the outside, because if I were to just measure that and not take that into account, I would have to recut this because the bricks have some dimension to them. So go ahead and cut that out of a piece of cardboard. That'll work great as our base. And then to make sure that nothing actually sticks to this and that we can kind of move it in and out constantly, I'm going to take a piece of wax paper and just kind of scotch tape that on there so that things slide in and off of this really easily. Now I'm going to break out the Proxxon hot wire foam cutter. It makes stuff like this a breeze, but you can do all of this again with just a knife on the foam. It really won't make a difference. This just speeds things up tremendously for me, and since I have it, I'm going to use it. So I use the cardboard as a kind of template for it. Since the wire's not hot enough to burn through the cardboard, I can get right up against it on the edge, and then I decide to make it a lot thinner. There's no specific measurement here. I do maybe an 1/8 of an inch because anything bigger is just not really necessary. And then I'm going to glue that onto the cardboard because I can't texture cardboard or else I'd just leave it, but I want to texture the bottom to look like bricks as well. So I'm going to hot glue this and just kind of smack it on there to make sure that it stays really, really well. And now I'm going to take the Green Stuff World's bricks texture. I've used it before, but it's just going to make this a lot quicker and a lot easier. It's a textured rolling pin. You just push really hard, roll across this, and boom, you've got yourself some nice brick textures, which will work as almost like a walkway at the bottom of our dice tower. Again, you can do this with pencil and it'll probably look better, but it took me 10 seconds to do that. Now I'm taking my Proxxon and setting it to 3 inches wide because 3 inches divides or multiplies up nicely into the brick size I'm using, which the bricks are going to be 3/8 of an inch by 3/8 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. So it's double the length that it is of its width. So I take the bricks and I cut those to those 3-inch sets, and then I cut the preceding bricks to a thickness of 3/8 of an inch. After I have my 3/8 of an inch, I take it one more time through that 3/8 inch set and get a bunch of strips. Once I have those strips, I kind of move the Proxxon setup back to where I get to my 3/4 of an inch. I just run all those strips through, and bam, I've got my bricks completed. So now I can use all of those, and they all are a consistent size. Now that we have those bricks, I find the easiest way to texture large amounts of bricks like this is to just put them in a large Ziploc bag and just mash the hell out of them. Because once you do, you get a nice stone texture. You don't need to do anything crazy and texture them individually. This will work just fine. So then after that, I take the bricks and kind of set them up at their center points of the circle on the side and on the back. That way the tower can kind of sit exactly where I want it to. And then I'm just going to use hot glue as my kind of gluing staple, I guess, that I will be using throughout the rest of this. I won't use multiple types. Just glue little bits of the bricks in and then line them up on the back. We want to make sure that we get as close as we can to the vase. In my case, it could be something else for yours. It could be a Pringle can. Pringle can would work just fine. But once you do, you can pull that right off because the wax paper doesn't stick as well. So we've got that circular base on the back, which is what I'm going to use as the kind of start for the tower. And then I'm going to build kind of the courtyard, I guess, at the front of it where the dice are going to fall out of. Just make your bricks kind of line all the way up through the sides and then continue to build higher and higher. I'm not building on the front of where this vase is because that's where the dice have to come out. I'm going to kind of leave this opening here with a gap on the bricks, which is totally fine, and some of them are even going to overhang, and that's great. We want it to look like it was almost burst open rather than there being a pre-built-in door here. But you can see using a vase helps us keep this extremely consistent circle going up. Now that we have a good part of the tower going, we need to build the ledges that the dice is going to bounce off of when it's rolling down in there. So I make a couple of circles, the width of the vase from the inside, because that will line up nicely, and I create a just kind of circular template out of foam. And I set this to, again, a thickness that doesn't really matter, just thin enough to fit in there nicely, but thick enough to take a few dice hits without breaking, right? So I make 3 of those, cut those right out of that same circular foam. I place that foam at an angle so that the dice are forced downward, but also out. I don't want them to not be going forward as they're rolling down. So I'm going to cut off kind of a crescent moon shape, and that's the kind of pattern that I'm going to be using throughout the remainder of this. There will always be a opening for the dice to roll out of that they won't hit, but it's still angled for them to continuously head downwards. I'm also going to take some nails and just kind of drive them through the side of these platforms just as further stability. I don't trust hot glue to last for forever, but I do trust a nail and hot glue to last for a long time. So you can see that the dice there can run nicely off of that and it doesn't hurt anything. I set some scrap pieces of foam for the vase to stand on so that I can continue to have my consistent circle, and then I cut some extra scrap pieces of foam out so that I can line them up and that there's a platform for the extra bricks I'm going to use to set on, because now these bricks have to float with nothing underneath them, so they need to have something to stand on for at least a little bit, or else they're just gonna fall. So we want to make sure that we glue them really well and then get something else on there, or else they're going to fall with nothing kind of holding them up. So this section isn't holding itself up from standing on the bottom, the glue is kind of holding the entire front of this tower up. So the back of it's really strong, the front of it's pretty strong as well. It's only a small part that's missing, but if you're gonna throw it, try and hit the back of it when you throw your dice tower, I guess. But then just continue to lay bricks up the side and make more platforms for the dice to kind of bounce off of. This is the second one. Again, I'm just going to put it in there, hold it up with a bunch of hot glue around the edges, and same thing as before, throw some nails into the side to make sure that it sticks. I do this one more time so that there's 3 ledges in there. But now we need to paint the wood that's going to sit at the top of the platform. I just combine some bits of light brown and some dark sienna and rub those on some free coffee sticks. They're free if you just take them from Starbucks because they are free, and so this makes it cost even less, right? The next and one of the most important parts is to use the Blackmagic Crafts style Mod Podge black paint mixture. If you don't do this, your foam is going to eventually dent itself in from just being hit by dice over and over and over. This creates a really hard layer over the foam that will just kind of let the dice bounce off without causing any sort of damage to the foam. So get this absolutely everywhere. It also kind of works as a primer and a good way to hide mistakes. So put this on everywhere and make sure you get in between all the cracks of the bricks. If you don't, you're going to see pink, and we don't want that. After that, we're going to kind of line up where we want to put these sticks. You can see inside there that everything is absolutely covered, but we are only covering the top of it by about halfway because we want the dice to run off one side of it when you throw it in there and just kind of fall its way down. So I cut these sticks to length and just continuously line them up with a small opening for the dice to go into. We're going to put another layer of bricks on the top, so it doesn't matter how it sits right now. For that other layer, we actually need to pre-make some of the black Mod Podge covered bricks. If we were to paint them on there, there's a huge chance we're going to miss some pink because we're trying not to get any of this Mod Podge mixture onto our wooden planks, as it were. So we're going to take those bricks and lay them individually around the top. That way we can get good coverage, and you don't really need to set the vase back up on this part. We're only doing one little layer more. And then we're going to take some of the extra bricks that we have so that it's not just a completely round top. We'll actually have some crenellations, and it looks like this tower could have been used as some sort of archery defense tower, which is the whole point of this, but we're just going to throw dice into it. In terms of structure, we're really done. Now it's time to get to painting. I'm going to take a really dark gray and water it down so that it kind of gets into every bit of the cracks and go as hard as I can with this stuff, basically just as much as I did with the black Mod Podge mixture, and cover absolutely everything. Because if anything's missing, you'll at least still see gray as we're doing the dry brushes. So get it all on there, and then after you completely coat the thing, I would take a whole second pass through, just aiming to get it into the cracks of all the bricks, because if you don't get in there, you're gonna see black and it's not gonna look like bricks. So take the extra time, it's worth it to go through and do this and completely coat it in that dark gray. After that dries, we're going to put a black wash on it. My black wash is just black paint, a little bit of green paint, a tiny dab of dish soap and some water. It's very similar to the Blackmagic Craft style, and absolutely coat this thing in it. After that dries, we get to move on to my favorite part, which is the dry brushing. We're taking a tan cream to make this look like it has those earthy tones. If we do just gray, it'll look like this was a picture with a grayed overtone to it, which stone isn't all gray. It's got earthy bits to it. So take your tan-ish cream and do a extremely heavy dry brush around this. You can choose to do a heavier dry brush with the gray, but I like to do it with the cream. It gives it that natural stone look. I even take the dry brush and try and get in between the cracks as much as possible, because if you don't, you're gonna see just plain dark gray and it just doesn't look as good as it could. So make sure you hit absolutely everything with your cream tan dry brush, and then I'm going to take the gray dry brush that I would normally do, and instead of hitting it with a light dry brush, I'm going to use it almost like a sponge dry brush technique and just pat a bunch on there so that it gets random bits of that other gray color. But after that, you're completely done. You have your dice tower. You can coat it in a polyurethane spray to make sure that it lasts and is really strong and it's not prone to chipping. I do that, I just don't show it here, but look at this dice tower work. Throws out dice, puts it in that nice little walking courtyard, and bam. I'm extremely happy with how the texture comes out. I always like how it looks on this brick doing that 3-color combination. I'm happy with how far the dice come out of the tower as they are pushed down. I don't want them to go too far, and I like the little hole there because it makes it easy to grab the dice and pull them right out the front. So thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to watch more, and tell me in the comments down below what you might want to see me make in the future, because I'm just going to make what I have as ideas unless you tell me. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.